Hi, and thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Jacqueline.
And I'm your host, Nicole. Welcome to Perfictionist, where we share our passion for reading one story at a time.
On this week's episode, we will be discussing Day Zero by Kresley Cole. Day Zero is the accompanying novella that can be read after the first 3 books in the series.
We'll also be discussing Arcana Rising by Kresley Cole. Arcana Rising is the 4th full-length novel in the Arcana Chronicles series. Starting with Day Zero, readers are taken back to Day Zero of The Flash from the perspective of nearly all of the major arcana, as well as Jack. Readers get to know several characters they haven't had a chance to meet and witness what transpired for each of those characters on the fateful Day Zero.
So we learn some general information in this book. We learn the origins of the arcana. So it was started by a goddess called Isis, and she's the goddess of magic and entertainment.
Seems fitting.
Yeah. Ooh, let's make kids kill each other. It's so entertaining.
I mean, like, that was their purpose. Was it entertaining in our eyes? Apparently, because we're reading this book.
Right. Exactly. It's working. No. But it also implies that gods left the earth because less people believe in them. So you have to wonder if, like, they need the people to worship them to gain their power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, well, here's a quote that confirms that. Deprived of their lifeblood worshippers' prayers, these old deities are thought to have moved on to other worlds.
It's like making me think about in other games how they're saying, or how in other books they've been talking about how this game is sick. And it's like, is it sick because there's less and less people who are faithful to the gods? And it's like that impacting state of the game.
Right. That's a good theory.
It just like always keeps coming back to this like sense of evil and wrongness, and like it keeps being brought up. So I'm like, this better go somewhere. But if it doesn't, it's fine, because I'm sure it'll go somewhere even better.
I mean, having kids fight against each other for entertainment is for sure evil and wrong. So
yeah,
maybe that's the vibe you're getting. You're like, this is evil and wrong.
This is evil. There's something about this that's evil and wrong. I can't quite put my finger on it. Oh, and we also get more information about how the reincarnation works, which is something that we have been like endlessly like trying to figure out as we are reading the series. And it does say on the eve of a new game, each god's magic seeks out descendants from his or her arcana, house of arcana. So I believe this is what your theory was. Yeah. Is it doesn't have to be a direct descendant. It just has to be someone within that genetic line.
Within that family tree.
Yeah.
Yeah. So also a common theme in all the Day Zero stories is the lure of the lights during the Flash. And okay, so remember, and I'm sure everyone remembers, that huge Northern Lights display we had earlier this year.
Yes, I spent the entire night driving around the city trying to see it. I mean, maybe the fact that I was driving around a city was like my clue that I wasn't going to see it.
Absolutely what your problem was.
But everyone was saying, oh, we spotted it in this neighborhood. We spotted it in this neighborhood. Yeah. So I was like literally going to those neighborhoods.
Oh my
gosh. To see it.
When my husband and I were standing out in the yard and we were watching this display happen and I was taking photos, and then I said, I'm just going to look down the driveway, and because we were laying on like our backs staring up at the sky. Yeah, so I like changed my location and looked south, and like when you were looking for Northern Lights, you want to look northeast. That's your best chance at seeing the Northern Lights, is northeast in general, at least if you are in Canada like we are. I looked south and I was like, what? Because the whole sky. And then I called my husband over and he came, and all of a sudden I guess all of those particles just collided into our atmosphere, and the whole sky lit up in a display like I've never seen. For a second, I felt like this intense sense of vulnerability, because it was like, I mean, if the sun decided to, we'd be gone.
Yeah.
Like, no problem. And all I could think was like, if this is the Flash, I'm one of the people who would be dead.
You're like, this is how it happened. I understand now.
I understand. Oh, look at the beautiful lights. Ah, this is incredible. What a stunning display. Yeah, I'd be one of the dead guys. I wouldn't be in the stories.
But like it really talk about how like people were just like transfixed by it, and it's like they couldn't not look at it. Like people were having to like basically pull them away so that they weren't
Yeah.
overtaken by the beauty or something. I don't know.
I think it's like probably fate somehow, but also understandable if you see it with your own eyes. You can't look away. And in fact, when we were like so tired, we should go to bed, and it just wasn't stopping. And I kept like wandering over to the window and looking, because I was like feeling like I was going to miss out on,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm like, yeah, I'd be one of the dead guys. I'd be Ash.
One of the things I did find a bit confusing was the whole Arcana getting their powers, because it appeared as though some of the Arcana, like Evie, Matthew, Finn, Selena, and Tess, were able to use their powers before Day Zero. Like in their segments, it like showed evidence of them using them. And it says that they don't get their powers until the eve of the game starting. So even in Selena's section, she was like talking about how she never misses a bullseye because she's like the archer.
Yeah.
And later talks about her getting her powers. So I'm like, isn't hitting the bullseye, like isn't being like on target all the time part of her powers? So that part I found a little confusing. I was like, because some of them appear to be able to do these things they shouldn't have been able to do previous.
Like Selena, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
But Selena was training right from when she was young, too.
And even like Evie, she seemed to be able to talk to the plants like days before her birthday. And the plants were like coming to her. And like I guess when she went to Jackson's house, that was the eve of it. So that's why the plants were maybe responding to her. But it felt like they were starting to respond to her like a couple days before that.
Right.
And then Tess was like, things were happening with Tess before. But again, maybe it's just because I was reading it and I thought it was happening earlier. But maybe that all was supposed to be the eve of Day Zero, that all this stuff was happening.
Yeah.
So one thing I noticed on the set of books that I personally own is that on each of the front of the books, there are a symbol. And until I read Day Zero, I didn't really understand what they were. But now having read Day Zero, I think they're the Arcana icons, because each of the icons is described in Day Zero. And I think that's what they are. And I'm wondering if that might have a significance. And I'm wondering if perhaps the book at the end might be the Hangman book, because like the last book in the series, what is it called, From the Grave or something?
Yeah.
I couldn't identify the symbol on that one, because then after I was like, oh, maybe these are the symbols, blah blah blah. And so I don't know, I'm thinking maybe it's important, but then again, it could just be cover art, and cover art could just be there because it's pretty. So
well, no, I think you are right. I do believe that these are some of the tarot symbols. But the thing with tarot that I've noticed when I was creating like our covers for this season.
Thumbnails?
Yeah. Looking up all the different tarot symbols, there's quite a few different interpretations of them. So it could, I mean, the one Endless Night, that is for sure the Grim Reaper's symbol. It's a scythe. But like the other ones, yeah, there's so many different interpretations. I can see that they're tarot symbols, but it would also depend on if you had a tarot deck, which deck you have, whether the symbols look the same or not. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I guess, tarot is like such an interesting world, but like I feel like to really understand it, you like have to dedicate so much time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, props to Cressley for like delving into that world, because I'm sure she did so much research in order to write these books, on top of like all the other research and like knowledge she had in the writing realm, then to like take on learning about tarot just to make the series like comprehensive and like match
Mm-hmm.
with real life information.
I mean, I know she was definitely inspired. I don't know if it sticks strictly to certain aspects of tarot. Uh, from what I understand, she would look at the tarot card and be inspired by the picture.
Oh, okay. So she didn't necessarily like do a bunch of research into like the meanings behind the cards. It was just kind of like her interpretation of the images,
I think she probably,
potentially.
I wouldn't say she didn't, but I do remember, yeah, I wouldn't say she didn't do that research. I'm sure
Yeah.
she did. But yeah, no, I remember reading something about her being inspired by the elements in the photos.
Yeah.
But like I don't know. I feel like I'm speaking out of turn here.
Yeah.
I want to interview her.
Yeah. Oh no, we like 100%. We obviously don't know her motivation and intention, and like we can only speculate wildly about what we think she was doing when she wrote these
Yeah,
books. But
yeah.
it feels to me like she did a lot of research, just because
Yes,
it
yes.
seems so well connected to
Mm-hmm.
what, when I have looked up things, I'm like,
Yeah.
that makes so much sense.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
and speaking of like things making sense in relation to like tarot research, Google searches, and the hangman, we don't know much about the hangman because it's redacted.
Mm-hmm.
So that part, because it's almost like Matthew has put this together, because I think it says Matthew redacted that section. But it is confirmed that the hangman is the inactive card. So
Mm-hmm.
the hangman will come into play as soon as they have eliminated one of the other players in the game. And I have a theory that the hangman is Jack. And at this point in the story, Jack is no longer with us. I don't believe that to be true. But that is what we're being told, is he is no longer a part of this world. He's gone. But I have a theory that he is the hangman, and I think we might have mentioned this in our last
Yeah.
episode.
Yeah, we did.
And some of the reasons I was kind of thinking that are like, I was looking up hangman, and it says, at its core, the Hangman Tarot card teaches us of the importance of surrender, patience, and gaining new perspective in our own lives. In general, the Hangman is about sacrifice, new perspectives, and waiting for the right time. And I'm like, I feel like that kind of fits with Jack's character, especially so when we talk about Arcana Rising. And
Right.
we didn't say this at the beginning, but like, I feel like it goes without saying, but I will say it. In this video, we are doing spoilers for Day Zero and Arcana Rising. So if you have
Yes.
not read those books,
Spoiler alert.
go read them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
And also, another bit of little evidence to support my claims here is a quote Jack is saying about Evie. So there is a section about Jack in Day Zero. And it says, I had seen something that couldn't be right, like something had been glowing around her face. I'm sorry, but that pretty much tells me Jack is seeing Evie's tableau.
But
Prove me wrong.
okay, I will.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if I will. I was going to say, like, that to me was her coming into her powers. And remember how her symbols, like, glow on her?
Yeah. Okay, fine. I suppose that could be an alternate explanation.
You're like, I don't believe it.
I'm just like so excited about my theory.
Fine, Jacqueline, whatever.
I mean, it makes sense, but
so now talking about the Emperor, based on the theory that the symbols on the book represent the Arcana, who is heavily featured in the book, we can assume that the Emperor will be around until the second to last book, The Dark Calling, which features his icon on the cover.
So that's the next book. And I think after reading Arcana Rising, like, it seems very obvious that's the next big bad that they have to overcome.
How the F do you defeat someone like that?
Yeah, I don't know. They're gonna have to like somehow like collectively, I think, defeat. Like, I don't think it's like one person can. I think it's gonna have to be like some sort of combo. They're gonna have to tag team it,
Mm-hmm.
and it's gonna be like a series of moves in a certain succession that allows them to succeed. I'm assuming they are successful.
I would assume, but I actually don't know.
So we shall find out eventually. We hope. We can only hope. I mean, there's still so many questions
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
how this is going to play out. We also meet the Sun card who can control the Bagman. And I'm wondering if this is like a clue that the game is dedicated to the Sun because he has like control over
Mm-hmm.
like that, something that's so, I don't know, integral to this
Prevalent to
game.
the yeah, and I mean that it makes sense that it would be like to honor the sun card or whatever, just like how Death mentioned the Black Plague was to honor him and everything. So I mean, I feel like that's kind of funny because the Death card and then the Black Plague, it's like, well, it killed a heck of a lot less people than the sun did.
No, it's like, and that's the thing is this game is like devastating
Yeah,
compared
and they
to
they do say
previous
they've
ones.
never experienced this level of devastation in previous games. Like this is
Hmm.
like apocalyptic
Yeah.
levels. So the Bagmen, oh man, it's such a good name for them because it gives
Yeah.
such a disgusting visual, and it is a disgusting visual. But we learn more that their skin looks like a crinkled up paper bag. So can you just imagine like this crinkly sort of yucky, desiccating being with
Yeah.
oozing skin, just like, I'm so thirsty all the
Yeah.
time.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It is quite the creation.
Yeah.
And then this book, like, I feel like the entire book, you're kind of like, oh, that's really interesting. That's really interesting. And then, like, the last page of this book, you're just like, why did you do this to me, Presley? Because we find out why Jack has been so secretive about what happened with his mom. And you find out that Jack had to take his mom out so
I
that she
know.
wouldn't suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's a way to start the most horrible new phase of your life? Like
Ugh,
everything that follows, even everything leading up, like this poor Jack has been through so much.
I know. And then he also had to take out Evie's mom, right?
Yeah.
Like, holy smokes, he's been through a lot. But I think that concludes our discussion about Day Zero. So, go ahead and give that a little read. Oh, did you want to mention why Day Zero was created?
Oh, yeah. Originally, Cressley had, I guess, sold the rights to Arcana Chronicles to become like a TV series or a movie or something. So she had written each of the Day Zero for the characters as to like help in the screenplay so that I'm assuming the actors who or actresses who were playing each of these characters could have background information and like get into the character, which is one really really cool that she like did that,
Mm-hmm.
and two, so devastating that this didn't actually end up being some sort of
Yes.
media, because how badly I want to see this as
I
a
know.
film is like I can't even explain.
I know. Like as a series would be really cool because then you'd
Mhm.
really get into like building up those relationships with those characters and it would make such a cool series if done correctly.
You would have to do a series, and like each book would have to be like one series of
Mm-hmm.
the bigger series. Like you would have to really take your time to flesh it out, or else like it wouldn't you wouldn't be able to capture all the like it just builds and builds and builds and gets better and better with every single book and every single
Mm-hmm.
installment. So yeah, I think if you didn't take the time, that build up wouldn't feel as impactful.
Yeah, I think they could do it how they did Game of Thrones before the catastrophic final season. They could literally take a book and make that a season and then move on,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
that gives each story enough space to really flesh out what needs to
Hmm.
be done there.
No, exactly.
So moving on to Arcana Rising. Spoiler alert. So it picks up right from the end of Dead of Winter, that horrible ending. Jack and Selena have been removed from the game by Richter. Evie's been separated from Arik due to that massive wave created by Cersei. Oh, that was an intense thing to happen, actually. And she gets completely caught up in it, and Cersei doesn't mean to. I don't think it's just she's just caught up in it, and then Cersei probably completely wasted all her power on this massive wave. So it's not like she could then do anything to help Evie, even if she wanted to.
No, she like just kind of sets it in motion, and then like once it's released,
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah.
And then Evie's arm gets ripped off.
Oh my goodness, I know what she goes through at the beginning of this book.
I'm like, girl, your arm just got ripped off. Like I can't. Like
She becomes
what?
such a badass at the beginning of this book. Like
Oh yeah.
her being alone and solo really forces her to like step up, and she's like using all of the things that Jack has taught her about survival. And instead of being like the person he's saving, she's like using these skills and like really coming into her like her character development at the beginning of this book
Yeah,
was
it's
like
huge, and
huge.
it's and like way bigger than anything we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm.
And the catalyst was that Jack had to die, and then she had to be separated from Arik, right? So she has to survive herself, and then she really realizes like she's formidable.
Yeah. But she's still like at the heart of it like kind. Like she definitely gets like this really really tough exterior and like kind of like a I'll do anything to, like I will sacrifice anybody to get the
Yeah.
like to reach my goals.
Mm-hmm.
But you know she's doing it because she cares
Yes.
about the people
And
she loves.
her ruthlessness, I think, also comes from the fact that she is planning on finding Tess and forcing her to turn back time. So all of those ruthless actions and people who are going to get hurt because of them will be undone if she manages to turn back time. So
Yeah.
if that was your true belief that it was going to be erased, it would make you a lot more ruthless in order to get to the end goal.
Mm-hmm.
And all the more devastating if you cannot meet that goal.
Well, yeah, because then everything you've done to get to that goal has been
It
for
sticks.
nothing. Yeah, it sticks. It's like you can't undo all those things that you've
All
done.
those horrible things that you did with good intentions can't be
Mhm.
undone like you originally thought.
Yeah. And one of the kind of horrible things she does is she kidnaps Soul, which is the sun card, because she realizes that he can amplify her powers
Which
because
makes
he's the sun.
sense.
And yeah, it
Yeah.
completely makes sense. And we also learn that the reason he can control the Bagmen is because they're created from solar radiation and he controls the sun. So it all checks out. And his story was super sad in Day Zero. His two, he was like in a threesome triad, and
Yeah.
his two lovers become bagmen. So the fact that he can control bagmen means he gets to continue being with them.
Mm-hmm.
But he controls them. It's not like an equal partnership anymore. Like they're his little
He's just
sidekicks.
trying to protect them.
Yeah. Which really humanizes the bagmen.
It does. I know. Even though they're like mindless. I just had a thought because they're created by solar radiation and they're oozing skin. It kind of reminds me of Chernobyl, and then how that radiation poisoning made their skin kind of
Mm-hmm.
melt. It was kind of like that with the bagmen, which
Yeah,
would
but
make
then it
sense
like
if they're
also like dries out because
yeah, but they're
yeah.
continuing to
Ugh.
live, right? So it's
Yeah.
like yeah, but it
Well,
just
no,
kind of
yeah,
reminds me of that.
because this radiation, that's
Yeah.
probably definitely impacting the state of their physical appearance. Yeah, so Evie is with Soul, and she's like, "Oh, he'll amp up my powers. We'll go find Tess. We'll reverse all this situation." But he's already teamed up with Richter and Zara, who is Fortune,
Mm-hmm. Lady Luck.
Lady Luck. So he does end up turning on her, and that's unfortunate because maybe I'm wondering though if like they are too powerful together. It was like too early for such a powerful duo.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think I was getting that he was kind of afraid of them, like the duo. So it's like he has to choose whichever side's going to keep him in his little Bagman people alive. But then Evie does go and find Tess, but she's dead. And she already tried. And she was a good-hearted girl. But yeah, so that sucks. she can't undo everything. So she, in her grief, goes to the now cooled lava field and creates some beautiful graves for Selena and Jack.
That was such a touching, like, that whole scene was just like so heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
Just her finding Tess and like her grief when she finds her and realizes like just like the extent that Tess went to for Evie, because she like Tess obviously herself wanted so badly to like fix this for Evie, and she like realized like how much Evie realized how much like Tess respected her and wanted to do something for her. So then it like made her feel even worse that she was like willing to sacrifice Tess when like Tess was already willing to do it because she just liked Evie so much. Oh.
Yeah. It's
and then
really
the grave
sad.
scene. Oh my gosh.
It was so sad.
This book, like, this is the first book in the series where I was like so emotional and so invested in each of the characters. I think previously, like, I enjoyed it and I was like really into it, but this is the first one where I like felt like super connected to the characters and like actually like emotionally distraught by like what was happening to them.
Yeah. Pretty brutal. I was very shocked when Jack died. I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I didn't think this was going to be that kind of series. Like, I was like,
yeah.
You don't often find authors who are just willing to just like knock people off.
I know. So. Big, important characters. Yeah, so then she meets up with Lark and Death. They go back to Death's. Death is kind of like, oh, I see. You've like, can you imagine being him? Like, the second choice? Like,
yeah. Yeah, he's not really having it. He's like, I'll keep you safe because like you're my wife and I love you. Wife. But like he's like not happy with her right now. Like he loves her, but he does not like her in this moment.
Yes. The grandmother.
Yes, he gets the grandma. He said he would and he delivers.
This grandma, she is spicy. She is very spicy, but she does manage to teach Evie more about her own powers, which is helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But she has like a rabid desire for Evie to win, and believes Evie's been poisoned by Death to look at things the wrong way. When we know that Evie, that's just her.
Yeah.
That's
it, like,
her.
Really begs the question, if her grandma had never been taken away, how vicious would Evie have been? Like if because she basically got reprogrammed when she went away to the place the institution she went to.
Well, Evie's grandmother would have encouraged the Red Witch to come forth, and she would have taught Evie that the Red Witch is the best thing, kind of thing. Whereas without her grandmother's influence, Evie developed a moral compass.
Yeah.
and views the Red Witch as something a part of herself that she hates because she's so vicious.
Well, and she's like maybe even fearful of it taking over.
Yeah.
But she does learn about her powers, which is good because she learns that she can become a powerful healer. And like with the plant medicine and stuff, that she can manipulate wood and she can transport via trees. That'd be so cool. I mean, there's no trees in this world, but like, if she grew some, then she could.
I mean, she could grow some. That's within her power.
Yeah. So I do hope we see some of these new powers. I'm assuming we're told about them so that we can see her develop into them.
She seems kind of integral for the planet at this point.
Yeah.
She needs to make the earth green again. Like,
that does seem to be something that is implied by her grandma. Like, you need to win. And like some of the thoughts that are going on is, do I need to win so I can literally reseed the earth? Like, do I have to be the one who wins so that this can be reversed?
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming that's, again, going to come into, like, that's going to be a bigger discussion of, like, that she has to grapple with maybe she'll eventually have to decide between her love and her like own personal wants and like the wants of everyone else.
Yeah, so we learned too that the games are completely inevitable. The gods decreed the game. It will happen no matter what, even though the gods don't appear to be watching anymore. It's going to continue to go on. And even if the players try to resist it, they will be forced. They will experience heightened aggression and they will be forced into each other's proximity. So no matter what they do, it seems like they have to kill each other or
Yeah.
fight.
I know, because it's like you're always like hoping, like, oh, maybe they'll find a loophole. And like Evie's always hoping, are they going to find a loophole? But it sounds like that's not going to be an option. And in some ways, it's going to be more interesting if that can't be an option. But in other
Mhm.
ways, you also just want everything to be happy at the end and everyone to live and get to grow up and the games to be done. And But
Yeah.
one thing that came up that I was wondering about when she was talking to her grandma is it was almost implied that Evie's grandma got rid of Evie's dad because he wanted to take her away from Haven. And her grandma's like whole thing is like the Empress has to be at Haven. Like
Yeah.
that was like a major,
The Empress has always been at Haven,
yeah.
right?
So the fact that the dad had like planned for their family to move away from that, and then all of a sudden he disappears.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Is Grandma evil?
Yeah. Well, or like, yes, evil, but like in her mind or her eye, like it's probably
Well,
not
she's
evil, it's
doing what,
necessary.
I mean, when you think about it, the games are completely inevitable.
Yeah.
So, right?
Shouldn't have mattered where she was, but
So, to kind of summarize these next few notes, basically, Evie finds out that Matthew, like, we know Matthew's been hiding a lot from her,
mhm.
but we didn't know that Matthew had killed her in a previous game. And she feels very betrayed by this knowledge because she's very protective of him. Matthew starts giving off some pretty creepy vibes, in my opinion. Like he's masterminding this situation.
Yes. And like part of me still wants to be like, oh, maybe he's doing it all for her sake. But like it's really, really giving like he's the big bad here. Like
Mm-hmm.
he is the one that you really have to be watchful of. And it is like beware the fool. Like it comes up a lot. And he even tells
Yes.
her, don't like essentially don't trust me. Like so I don't know. Like part of me still is holding out hope that he's not pure evil and not like, you know, completely gonna betray her and gonna like come in and like be on her side again. But another part of me is like, oh, I don't know. He's telling you he's not gonna do that.
Yep. I know. And she treated him so much like he was just like this young child who didn't understand anything. And meanwhile, I think he's just been running circles around her.
Yeah. You know, there's definitely more from Matthew to come, I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming. And it'll be interesting to see like because he does have a plan. He is playing a game, his own game, and we are not privy to it. And
Yeah.
it has to do with the hangman and it has to do with like all sorts of pieces that we just don't even know about yet. And yeah, I'm very curious to see how his portion of this unfolds.
Yes. Arik and Evie end up reconciling. Evie has loved him this whole time. She just like loved Jack more, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, they end up getting together, become intimate in a really crazy, wild like storm, which is said in here that the storm was meant basically to warn death and life never to unite.
Mm-hmm.
So they mend their relationship. They plan to live as a married couple. Evie decides she's going to make Arik a ring out of wood that she crafts herself. It's actually quite an action-packed book because then we end up also so Finn and Lark are like, it seems like they kind of love each other, like immediately.
Yeah. Well, and like we kind of learn from flashbacks that Evie keeps having that like the Lark and Finn have been destined to be together each game. Like there is something to do with that infinity symbol we talked about. Like they are destined to each other.
Yeah.
And so in this game, like Finn has been lost since the whole kerfuffle at the end of the last book. And Lark has been searching for him. And they do eventually find, Lark eventually finds Finn. And he has been hunkered down with Jules and
Gabriel. Yeah. Which is good.
Which is good. And it adds like some interesting, funny drama because obviously when the Death and Lark and I think Lark stays behind, but Death and Evie go to kind of save them, I guess, bring Finn back. And then Jules and Gabriel are there and some shenanigans ensue, which added some humor.
Oh, and also Saul ends up guiding them to safety. I can't help but like him.
Saul?
Yeah.
Yeah. He uses his little bagman to like point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they should go because, sorry, we kind of jumped, I guess, but like, they were retrieving Finn and then the other two, they get attacked by Richter, Sol, and Zara. And so Sol decides like, actually, they are probably the better side and I should help them get out of this.
But he has to be so careful because like, obviously Richter could kill him so easily. So yeah, his little bagmen are like little like signs, post like direction signs, like pointing.
Just like a little subtle, like right.
I was like imagining the Walking Dead zombies being like pointing, like like disgustingly. Oh man, but
see,
yeah,
humorous.
Yes.
We find out Jack's alive.
Yes. So, by the way, Jack's alive,
which we all knew.
Yeah, I mean, and he decides to like not tell Evie that he's alive. He decides he's like, she's better off if I just remain dead in her mind. But Matthew's like, no, I'm gonna do whatever I want because he's got like his own plotting going on.
Yeah.
But this like quote when he asks Matthew like, why would you like let this all happen basically? And Matthew just goes like, well, I broke her smile. And I'm like, you evil person.
Yeah, because he was like, it's like Matthew found Jack, and it's like he was bringing her to Evie. So you think, oh, okay, he's on their side again. But like, no, he's just playing his freaking games.
Yes.
And he kept saying like 50-50. And like, because Jack was seriously injured, so he thought he had a 50-50 chance of like surviving his injuries. But no, he meant like, oh, you have a 50-50 shot of deciding to reunite with Evie or choosing to let her live her life up thinking you're dead. So then he lets him make the choice, but then like you said, goes back on his word and tells Evie anyways because he's trying to break her.
Yeah, he's masterminding this whole thing.
Like, but my thing is he trying to break her because he needs her to be powerful and become the Red Witch to win? Or is he trying to break her so that he can beat her?
Don't know. I don't really understand a lot of this because it seems to me that not all the players are trying to win in past games. Like, the more you read, it's like they're trying to help someone else win.
Or they have no idea what's going on because they don't have Chronicles anymore and they're out of the game before they know it exists.
That's probably more likely the situation.
And the more they get removed from the original game, the less each of the players know. Yeah. And you just basically end up with these 5 players who have like hardcore chroniclers or Tarasovas who help them. And everyone else is just like, what's happening?
Everyone else is almost just fodder, basically.
At one point, there's a quote and it says, what if the entire earth is Taro, which is like the arena that the gods created?
Yeah.
What if they are controlling everything within, even down to the storms to warn death and life never to reunite? So this is like, you mentioned the storm that was happening while they were reuniting.
Yes.
And it's just like such Hunger Game vibes. Like such like there's a game master, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And it's like this whole thing is like in a dome and it's being controlled and people are like, the gods are all watching. And like they said, yes, the gods have abandoned them and stuff. But like it really gives that vibe of like, is this just some like reality TV show for another set of beings who are far superior to what is happening on Earth? And
yeah. I know. I'm very curious to see how it all turns out. Evie gets pregnant, which is like insanely inconvenient in my opinion.
I know, and it's like this shocking reveal because like at the very end, she like gets knocked out because of the vision Matthew gives her to like tell her Jack is still alive.
Yeah.
But she like isn't sure what's like, she's been having lots of like gaps in her memory and like blacking out kind of, and like her powers are on the fritz. So like she's kind of in a bad place at the end of this book. Where she's not like, her memory's not doing well and her powers are not doing well, and she like blacks out because like when Matthew's trying to communicate with her, I'm not sure if it's because she's like weaker or if he like did that on purpose, but then when she comes to, she gets the shocking news
oh my god,
that she's pregnant, and she's like, what do you mean I got the shot so that I couldn't get like I got a birth control shot?
Yeah.
But then the guy, the medic, Paul, is like, no, that never happened. So it's like, what is real? What is not?
Yeah. And yep. I can't wait till you read the next book.
I like how you're just like, I can't say anything. Oh
man.
I'm excited for the next one too, because then you like, I feel like because you have to hold back in what you say, it's like preventing you from like fully engage. Like you're like,
I know, I'm so sorry.
No, I understand. Like you don't want to give anything away. You want me to be able, and the listeners to be able to experience it when we read it. But I am very intrigued by the last 2 words of this book though, because they make no sense to me.
Oh, they make sense to me. Can I explain
TikTok.
it? Yeah, TikTok. Well, okay, but remember how earlier we were discussing as time goes on, as time passes, the aggression heightens and the proximity closes in. Well, I think that was indicative that like it's now like becoming more intense.
You're running out of time. Like
like we're gonna force this to happen.
Gotcha. So no more hiding in Death's lair.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes complete sense.
That was my thoughts. I don't know if that's what it meant, but that's what I got from that.
I think that makes complete sense. I mean, obviously it could be something else, but that certainly tracks for me. And then throughout this book, like we didn't talk about her at all, but the priestess has been like looming in the background. And I was a little surprised because I'm pretty sure it's her icon on the front of this book. So I was expecting her to be much more prominent in this book, but she was just kind of like floating around in the background. Like she was there, like there was definitely scenes that she was, interacting with
maybe
Evie.
it was due to that like insane wave at the beginning, like
it set into motion.
Yeah, I mean it set into motion Evie's I guess not, because it was more Richter who set into motion Evie's like massive transformation leap forward in her character development, but
like the wave is what like separated her from everybody.
Yes,
that is true.
Yeah.
So, but I'm assuming Cersei will be a massive part of the next book, as well as Richter. Yeah, I think that's kind of who our major and then obviously all of the people who have come together at the end. We've collected all of our people in the ally group.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. Stuff is about to happen. It's going down. It's a good book. This is a favorite book of the series so far. Was so invested in all of the characters and am so excited to see what happens next.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope that you enjoyed this week's episode.
Next week, we will be discussing Fractured Fairy Tales as part of our Books and Bevy series. Thanks again, and we hope to see you there.